Welcome to another episode of the Global Investors Podcast. I'm your host, Charles Crillo. Today we have Paul Montelongo. He is a lifelong investor, entrepreneur, and business owner. Paul has built and owned and operated 8 multi-million-dollar businesses over his 45-year career in high-end construction and remodeling, casualty management, residential property flipping, sales, and mentoring. These companies have generated over $140 million in revenue and have employed hundreds of people. He invests in underperforming specialty properties in emerging markets like marinas, resort properties, apartment units, event facilities, and self-storage, as well as residential properties. Currently, Paul has investments and dispositions in more than 1,400 units across multiple markets. So, Paul, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Glad to be here, Charles. Glad to be here.
So you have a very interesting background going from an entrepreneur into becoming a real estate entrepreneur. But before doing what you're doing now, buying a whole plethora of different real estate assets, can you tell us kind of a little bit about yourself, both personally and professionally?
Sure. Well, I bought my first piece of real estate when I was 17 years old. My father, who did not own real estate, at the time, I don't even know if he owned the home we lived in. He might have, but he said, you got to buy real estate. So I believed him. And I took the money that I made in the summer, raking leaves and mowing grass and doing odd jobs. And I put $7,500 against a tract of land, a little residential lot, little cul-de-sac residential lot. And I had these great aspirations that I was going to build a spec house and sell it and make a ton of money. But, I'm 17. I don't know how to do that. So I held on to it. And then 2 years later, I put a sign on a telephone pole that said lot for sale. And I had my parents' home telephone number on it. And somebody responded and I sold it to them for $15,000. I doubled my money. And I did the thing that every experienced real estate investor is supposed to do with a windfall profit like that. I bought a truck and a motorcycle. And that set me on a course. Then a couple of years later, I bought a house and I flipped it. And then I bought one across the street and I flipped it. And then so for close to 25 or 30 years, I did residential flips, single family. And while I was operating my construction business, my renovation business, I had a insurance restoration. Your house burned, we would fix it up. That gave me real estate leads as well. I learned. And then that, just set me on a course of through my life doing real estate in some form or fashion. I bought a little small piece of land, a little small real estate, a commercial real estate tract. And, these things just kind of added up through the span of my life. And then in 2012, someone asked me if I wanted to buy a marina. And Charlotte, North Carolina, I was living in Las Vegas at the time. And they asked me if I wanted to go to Charlotte, North Carolina and buy a marina on the lake there. And I had no idea how to buy a marina, what to do with a marina. I'd never owned a boat. I still have never owned a boat. This marina had 115 boat slips. It had 24 RV spaces. And then it had some other, like its storage and things like that. And so the short of it is that I was able to go in with a couple of partners and purchase that as my first multi-unit commercial tract of land. And we took the 24 RV spaces out. I made 36 or 38 pads and I put 38 tiny homes. I had 38 tiny homes built. And so we became an Airbnb superhost, and it was a glamping resort, the first one on the East Coast. And at one point I had 13 streams of revenue. There was the marina and boat rental and event space and the tiny homes and storage and lot storage and a boat club. So all told, we just built streams of revenue. And then I held on to that until 2018 and I sold. So yeah, it was quite an adventure. My only regret there is that I didn't do a TV reality show because it was a crazy adventure, on the lake there.
Oh, that's crazy. That was very seasonal then, I imagine. So what happened in the off season with everything? I mean, people pull their boats out.
A lot of people pull their boats out. A lot of people lifted their boats off the water, covered them, winterized them. It was seasonal, although we did annual leases. We didn't do seasonal leases because there was enough demand on the lake there. It was only one of 5 marinas, and the lake was quite popular, Lake Wiley, Charlotte, North Carolina. And so the lake was quite popular. And so we did annual leases. So whether your boat was in the water in the dock at not, you still had an annual lease. And, as it turned out, we had a nice waiting list, and so it was good. In the winter, people still came in for the Airbnb tiny homes. It's really nice in North Carolina in the winter, aside from a few really chilly days. But we managed to have revenue year round.
Nice. So take us into kind of what you're doing today. You built some businesses. You're in real estate. You're buying all different types of assets now. I guess mainly apartments. But can you give us a little overview of really your current investment strategy and kind of your philosophy behind that?
Sure, mainly apartments right now. So after I purchased the marina and the two gentlemen that I was in business with, they were apartment buyers for the most part, and so they mentored me and they told me how to get into it and how to raise capital and how to go get funds and those kinds of things. And so then I started buying apartment complexes. At first I had partners, that would be the majority owners. And then through time, then it kind of switched over to where I became the KP and obtained the loan and so forth. And primarily we buy in South Texas. We have 2 assets in Kansas. We have, we closed a transaction in Alabama. I have another Alabama transaction that I'm working on, but it's not an apartment. It's a data center. I'll tell you about that in a minute. South Texas, San Antonio, Corpus Christi. And so we look in Texas because Texas, like Florida, where you are, there's a lot of growth, a lot of population growth and business friendly and those sorts of things. So we look for apartment complexes, usually Class C plus or Class B minus, something that we can do a light value add. I don't want to do a total reposition, too much work. But if we can put some paint on what do they call it? Lipstick on the pig.
Yeah.
we do some cosmetic work and add value there, then that's really our strategy.
Nice. When you're picking out these markets, obviously we talked about Texas, Kansas, a couple other places. What would you look for in an emerging market to invest in? Is there any kind of specific metrics that you and your team kind of want to see before going into a market?
We do. First, we look for landlord-friendly states, landlord-friendly areas with reasonable population growth and not just current population growth. Like what's the trend? So do we see something over the last 3 years? And do we project that there's another 3 to 5 years beyond today that there's going to be steady population growth? 2, 3, 4% population growth, because that correlates to job growth, which also correlates to rent growth, which also correlates to occupancy. And so just a whole economy, a whole ecosystem is stimulated by population growth. Weather is a kind of a side consideration. We don't have anything in the northern states. In Kansas, when it snows, we have to do snow clearing, which is something we don't do in Texas, so you have to budget for that sort of thing. Those are the considerations that we look for. Can we get to the property? Can our asset management team get there in a reasonable amount of time if something needs to be taken care of? Those are the things we consider.
How do you guys handle asset management and property management? Is it all third parties for your property management over those different states and assets?
Property management is third party. Asset management, construction management, that's in-house with partners that I have. So every Tuesday and sometimes in the middle of the day on Wednesday, that's dedicated to asset management. So I just sit on Zooms most of the day and listen to reports and see how properties are going and see how our team is handling the properties. I try not to say too much unless it's, unless I need to say something, but because the asset management team, I let them do their job with the property management team. Yeah.
When you guys are hiring a third-party property manager, how have you been successful in, number one, finding that property manager, and what are some things that you've done to vet that property manager? Yeah,
cool enough. We've had fairly good success with third property management companies. We want to see a property management company that's in a market, that's familiar with the market, familiar with the particular asset. So we'll always get a third-party property management company to help us underwrite the final stages, of underwriting on an asset that we want to purchase. We want to see that they have a good business plan, and that they're familiar with, how to work in the market. They've been in the market. So we've had pretty good success with property management companies. We stay really involved with them. We're not a hands-off team. Like I said, we meet every week with, now some assets as they get older or we have them a little bit longer, we meet once every 2 weeks. We have one asset in San Antonio. We meet once a month, but it's on autopilot. It's clipping along at 94-95% occupancy. So, we just do updates on that one. So in the beginning of an asset, the purchase of an asset, there's a lot of attention paid to it. And then hopefully if we're doing our job right, then over time, we just kind of do as needed on the asset and property management update calls.
Yeah. As that business plan is being really integrated, you can kind of step back a little bit from those really regular calls. So that's great to have, and knowing that your plan's actually rolling out correctly.
Yeah. And it's my job to go out and find more deals and to negotiate those deals and to deal with attorneys and deal with CPAs and deal with, challenges that come along on the job, the project that we need. So the less I can get into, how are we going to collect that delinquency, the better.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Do you have money sitting in the stock market and you're worried about it? Or worse, you have money sitting at the bank, not keeping up with inflation? My name is Charles Carrillo, founder and managing partner of Harborside Partners. And since 2006, I've been investing my money and my family's money into income-producing properties. These are real assets, real properties with real addresses that produce real cash flow. At Harborside Partners, we provide passive investors who love real estate with a turnkey investing solution. If you want to put your money to work in real estate but can't find deals, don't have the time to get funding, and the last thing that productive people want to do is manage real estate. We find the deals, we fund the deals, and we manage the tenants, the termites, and the properties. Partner with us at investwithharborside.com. That's investwithharborside.com. Go to investwithharborside.com. If you love real estate, you like the idea of passive income, and believe that income-producing properties will appreciate over time, go to investwithharborside.com. That's investwithharborside.com.
Talking about delinquencies, talking more about what you guys are investing into class-wise. So I guess we'd say over the last 36 months, we've seen, and it's slowing down now, an onset of new deliveries, especially in apartments coming online. And it really affects, I would say, obviously your A and your B, but I think it also trickles down into your C class a little bit as well. What would you, as focusing on your C plus, B minus, which is I would consider like your core workforce housing type properties, right? What would you say, how have your properties been affected by those new deliveries that have come on over the last couple of years?
We haven't seen a dramatic impact, and I think it's a price point consideration. So your workforce housing has a certain price point because it's tied to, number one, the amenities on the asset, the age of the asset, just the asset itself. And then number two, the demographic. So your B plus, your A minus, your A properties, they have a different demographic. And so, they attract a certain tenant, and we attract a certain tenant. So we haven't really seen a big impact, from saturation or, deliverables in the market. It's been fairly steady. All of our properties we have one right now we had to clear out a ton of people because they were just bad tenants, but most of our properties are operating at north of 90% occupancy. So that would tell me that the deliverables doesn't have a huge impact on our properties.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's, I think when people start tightening their belts or we're going through any type of economic uncertainty, that's when people forget about amenities. And no matter what A-class property comes on or B-class really concessions are coming on, if you have a solid C-plus property, you're probably not going to lose tenants. It's a little bit more insulated than having a nicer property where you're trying to get an extra $100 because of some, barbecue pits or whatever it might be per month, and people that are not really too worried about that. So
I think you probably know this statistic better than me, but the National Apartment Association, they had a statistic that I read a couple of years ago, and that's like 95% of people that tour want a swimming pool as an amenity. but after they lease, like 5% of them use it. So it's the perception, but I think a lot of times people really get back to the reality. Am I going to use that pool? Am I going to use that barbecue pit, like you said?
Yeah, it's one of those things. But I started in C-class properties, and it's just one of those things that anytime we went through any type of little bit of a pullback, we never had issues. We were really, like you were saying, 95% over, occupancy, never have an issue. And I think it's just something, and you would have people, I remember I was renting apartments right after the GFC, and I had people that were coming, I was up in Connecticut at the time, people were coming from South Florida that had lost like a $500,000 house back then that were now renting an apartment, I think like $695 a month from me. I mean, it's amazing. It's where people, when people get hit, they really get hit hard financially, especially in any of these real pullbacks, and they're not going A and B is completely out of it. They're going to a C property. You know what I mean? So
yeah. And if you've got your homework right on the market, then there's going to be organic population growth. Okay. Now then you add some kind of, financial condition in the market, and that only supplements your demographic going in as potential renters. So that's a win-win from an owner's perspective,
Yeah, no, for sure. So we've you talked about some different asset classes. You brought up data centers, which would be kind of, I guess, on any type of interview here, it's kind of illegal not to talk about AI. So it's one of those things. Let's talk about what you got going on with data centers. I mean, there's a lot of talk around it. I kind of go over it myself when I'm reading articles because it's not something that I know too much about. But tell us about kind of the economics behind it and how, how's your firm connected with it?
I'll try to hold the reins a little bit because I'm really excited about this asset class. But first of all, you should know that this is not really me. This is my AI clone talking to you. It's a joke, Charles. Let's go. But during the pandemic, I was seeing all these properties get abandoned, commercial properties, and even hospitals, and what do you call urgent care centers, and a lot of properties that were getting abandoned because people were going back home to go to work. So I asked myself the question, what's going to happen to all those properties? And I was just like, it took a hammer to my head. I couldn't figure out what to do with those properties. And then about a year and a half ago, someone said, well, have you ever heard of micro data centers? And I'm like, no, what's a micro data center? And it's just what it says. So you got this huge mega data centers that AWS and Google and Meta and all those are building that are, $500 billion. But then you have the smaller knockdown version of it that are 20, 30, 40, 50 megawatts of power, and mid-sized companies are occupying those, and they are what they call edge compute. So they're on the edge of metropolitan areas where there's a lot of demand and a lot of usage, and they're retrofitted buildings. So now here was the answer to the pandemic question. Buildings with power, as long as they have the power, they can be retrofitted to accommodate a data center and all of the rack storage space that is required for a data center, as long as they have the power. The challenge that we see right now in the country and actually in the world is a lack of ample power to sustain all of the data centers that are being built. So the answer for us is we go find properties that have existing power already allocated to it from the grid. In other words, we're not drawing any additional power from the grid. We're not taking it from the citizens. We're not taking it from new development. We're not taking it from places that didn't already belong to the property. We're just using the property. So what does that mean? Manufacturing plants, a commercial, industrial or commercial office space, a hospital, a foundry where they might have done brass or silver or any of those kinds of, high equipment type products. And so then now all you have is a remodel job, right? As long as you have the power allocated from the utility company, now you have a remodeling project, and you create the space with air conditioning and backup supply to accommodate rack space. And so we've invested in a facility in Alabama, and it currently has about $20 million worth of storage, computer storage space in it. We're putting another $25 million into it. I'm evaluating a tract of land in Texas outside of Austin that would be probably about $500 million worth of equipment. Now, that's not equipment that we would fund. We would just do the infrastructure, and then another company would come in and put their equipment in it and their storage. So that gives us the answer. And the real answer that I was looking for along the way was how do I get into the data storage cash flow business and have a part of the underlying asset we call real estate, since I'm a real estate guy. So how can I participate in both? And this seems to be an answer that we like and that is working. So, I mean, these are brand new, fresh investments. The performers look really nice. Talk to me again in 2 years and we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Let's talk about those leases then. When you're leasing that out to a company that's coming in, utilizing it for storage, number one, so you're saying you made reference to this. So the TI, the tenant improvements, it sounds like it's almost kind of like a warehouse that you're providing that has the infrastructure, but they're coming in with their own TI, tenant improvements. They're building it out. How long is that? How it is, and how long are these leases for that usually they usually sign them for?
Yeah, there's no TI. We do the build out.
Okay.
In other words, we do the air conditioning, and basically it's just a big room, and there's a lot of security in it. There's cameras, and there's plenty of air conditioning, plenty of backup generator backup for redundancy and that sort of thing. So essentially, they come in and they bring their equipment and they plug it in. It literally takes just a few days. If the equipment is prepared once it hits the dock, then to plug it in, it just takes a couple of days. And then they're up and running.
Interesting. And
so these companies come in and they have either they are end users or they have end users, in their stable. And so they either rent the racks to the end users or they themselves are the end users. So there's two models. We also can fund a group of racks and then do what's called a colo, so co-location. So in other words, a bunch of companies can come in and rent those racks, and you can rent them by the rack. They're about the size of a pizza box, by the way. You can rent a pizza box. You can rent a group of pizza boxes. You can rent a room full of racks. So there's all kinds of variations depend on your need. We find that a large part of who the end users are. By the way, we don't always know who the end users are for security reasons. Okay, like the name, because it goes through a third party and they hold the name confidential. But we find that a lot of end users are end users that have video storage needs. So police departments with body cams, the toll system that takes pictures of your license plates, any kind of church or municipality that has video recording of their premises. So video storage takes up video files take up a lot of storage, and they need to be preserved for liability for a long time. The contracts themselves, they can be 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year, much like apartments. But typically you'll see a 3 to 5 year lease agreement with a very strong switching fee, what's called a switching fee. In other words, to remove your equipment from the facility, it's almost cost prohibitive. And you might think, well, that's maybe not a good business practice. But in reality, these companies, once they park their information on a server, they're pretty much dedicated to leaving it there anyway. It's too much of a hassle, too much of an expense, too much logistics, too many logistics to actually move that data from a facility to another facility. So the switching fee is just, it's cost of business anyway. And, but it prohibits just, people from coming and going in and out, right? But 3 to 5 years, the equipment itself, depending on the equipment that you buy, they can last up to 10 years. Now, it's not the latest, newest model. Like, you go out and you buy a 2026 vehicle right now. It's just a little bit better than 2025, but a 2025 is a really nice ride. So it's the same thing with these racks. The 2025 version hums along great, has lots of storage. but the 2026 version, a little bit faster, a little bit more storage, and it doesn't make these others obsolete. It's just an improvement. So companies will keep their data that doesn't need to be what we call compute, right? So there's compute and there's storage. So active computation takes more storage, more power. But once a project is done and there's data that just sits there, it sits on these older servers.
Interesting.
And by older, I mean like 1, 2 years, 3 years,
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah, there are servers out there in the market right now that are holding information. And the servers were put in place in 1990, 1992. So, they have a decent lifespan.
Very interesting. What a unique asset class. I think it's something that it gets a lot of play now, data centers, because around AI. But really, I mean, they're needed for everything. You have a website, whatever it is. I mean, you're using storage for it. Obviously, with video is not going anywhere. And as everything gets more high def, let's just say, as the quality gets better, the files get bigger. You know what I mean? And like you said, now it's something where so many different places are bringing this online as a security feature, perfect for, like you said, body cams with police departments. That's something that's being rolled out, if not rolled out to most places in the United States. So these are just adding more and more requirements for companies to start using this and renting it.
Every new car has multiple cameras on it. My wife's bought a new Volvo, and I think it has like 10 cameras on it. Those little bitty pieces of glass that look like a size of a nickel, just all the way around. So, that process has to come from somewhere, and data centers is where they hold all that.
Paul, very interesting. As we're kind of wrapping up here, I had a couple of questions here because we'll get some investors that come on the show that are that are successfully in multiple asset classes like yourself. And it's not something that I actively do. So what would you say is really the key to success for people that are investing across multiple asset classes? Obviously, you're very knowledgeable in everything that you're investing in, but putting a team below you to handle, like you said, the management calls, working with the property managers, whatever it might be. How do you successfully do that?
Well, I'm fortunate that I've had a career where I've built a number of businesses. And so, yes, I'm a real estate investor, but I think more importantly, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a businessman. So you could probably put any kind of business in front of me, and I could probably figure out how to operate it and how to put a team together that could operate it and make it drive down the highway successfully. So to me, real estate, if I go buy an apartment complex, let's just say, I bought the real estate and I bought the doors and I bought the roof and I bought the parking lot, but I bought a business. I bought 100 customers, their tenants. I bought their great Google reviews. I bought their crappy Google reviews. I bought their unpainted walls. I bought their newly renovated swimming pool. So I bought all the marketing. I bought everything about the business. So it's our job then to go in and refine that business model, make it profitable, make it attractive, add value so that we can either refinance it, pull cash out of it, or sell it at market value. So just like any other business that you would do, you build the value, you build the NOI, the net operating income, you put a multiple on it, you sell it. So I think it's a mindset that I'm a business person, and put something in front of me, and if it interests me, I'll figure out a way to get it done.
Interesting. Yeah. So as we're wrapping up here, what would you say are some of the common mistakes you see real estate investors make? It can be with apartments, it can be in any asset class, or it can just be real estate as a whole.
I'll use myself as an example. How about that? I wish somebody would have taught me a long time ago how to raise capital. I didn't start raising capital until 2013, 14. All of my businesses prior to that, throughout my entire career, were self-funded, either my money or a bank loan that I guaranteed. And I did not really realize the power of raising capital and doing syndication. So I'm thankful that I was taught that, and that we've been able to refine that process pretty nicely. So I would say new investors or investors, it doesn't matter how long you've been in it. If you haven't mastered capital raising, do that. And that requires also networking, building a database, having a group of people in your Rolodex that like you, know you, trust you, track you, see what you do. And that just takes time. And so it's a long road, and you just get on the road and you just start going. So I would say, first of all, capital raising. Okay. Secondly, I would say that the power of having people with you and letting people do their jobs. And that's tough sometimes for an entrepreneur, because by definition, we want to manage everything, control everything. We're kind of Mustangs in that sense. We want to be out there leading the charge. So if you can get past that, or if you can manage yourself to bring along other people to help you manage, you'll see more growth. You'll see more productivity, and your life and your business life will just improve. Those are the two main things.
Okay. A lot of great information there. Paul, thank you so much for coming on. How can our listeners learn more about you and your businesses?
Yeah, sure. Anything Paul Montelongo on social media, Paul Montelongo everywhere. Okay. I got that name. It's unique enough that all the social channels have that. Also at montelongocapital.com is our portfolio and how you can get in touch with us. All of our social media tags are there. Links are there. So montelongocapital.com, we publish a newsletter, and but it'll take you all through our social media, and we're quite active on social media, my wife and I. And we publish education. We publish things about our deals, our family. We try to be very transparent on social. So we find that works for us. But anything social media, Paul Montelongo and or Montelongo Capital.
Okay. Well, Paul, thank you so much for coming on today. We will put all those links down to the show notes, and looking forward to connecting with you here in the near future.
Glad to be with you.
Hi guys, it's Charles from the Global Investors Podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you're interested in getting involved with real estate, but you don't know where to begin, set up a free 30-minute strategy call with me at schedulecharles.com. That's schedulecharles.com. Thank you.